Welcome to the Power Lunch on LinkedIn Live. This is Rhett Power. I'm your host. We do this program every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and sometimes on Friday, that being the case today. And we try to do it at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. Now, the point of the show is to talk to today's thought leaders, corporate leaders, best-selling authors about their secrets to success. And we want to find out what they do that helps them be successful so that we can all learn and we can all be better, right? The fun part of the show is that it is interactive. We can take questions from the audience. We can do that because of Social Live and the way that they've set up this platform. But if you have a question, please ask it so that you can benefit from our guests because they are experts in their field. Now, we do simulcast this on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, and all at the same time. So that's a lot of fun. If you love or like the program, give it a like or a share so that others can benefit in your network from what we're talking about. My promise to you is to bring you the best. Today, I think I've accomplished that. Cynthia Johnson is co-founder of Bell and Ivy, which is a digital marketing firm and branding agency in Santa Monica, California. She's been named a top personal branding expert from Entrepreneur Magazine. She's a top 50 marketer on Snapchat by Mashable, named by Mashable as a top 50 marketer. She's also one of the most influential women in business named by Tenfold Research. Her work has been featured everywhere. I'll just name a few: Entrepreneur, Forbes, HuffPost, and Time. And her first book just came out with Penguin Random House and 10 Speed Press. The book is called Platform. Cynthia, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. This is great. What a cool platform this is.
Yeah,
teaching me something.
fun. Yeah, I've been doing this for about 3 months, and it's ever since they opened up to the LinkedIn Live to a few beta testers, and so I think we're going to continue doing it because it's been a lot of fun. I love talking to smart people. I'm learning so much, and so it makes me happy. So I'm going to continue doing it.
That's awesome.
Well, I wanted to ask you, we're going to get into your expertise here in a minute, and we're going to dig into the book. But wanted to ask, first off, what's something that you've been out there for a while, you've got a big social presence. What's something that people don't know about you?
Oh, gosh. Probably a lot. I try to keep it, as professional as possible. Actually, it's funny, when I got married, people were like, "You were dating someone?" I was like, "Oh, just like almost 8 years."
Wow.
I try to shut off. But something I think people find surprising is that I mentioned a couple times before, but that I originally went to school for stunt choreography, and so that's a little, I think, shocking. And one of my first jobs ever was actually with a hypnotist. And
yeah. Oh, I'm scared now.
Yeah. So
were you good at it?
No, I was not the hypnotist, but I worked with the hypnotist. Okay. I was like the ta-da. Yeah, so that was an interesting job. And I grew up in Las Vegas, so there you go.
Okay.
There's a few things.
Yeah, there you go. That's good stuff. Does hypnotism really work?
It does. So it really depends. I think how people define hypnosis by what we see is a very different than what it actually is. But yeah, it does work because they do use it in things like the military. And then you're hired, but privately by police officers and other things. So it's real. It's really well. At least it's really being used. We'll put it that way. I'm not a professional.
Wasn't sure. That's
yeah.
Not have the authority on that now because I'm curious now. So why is personal branding essential, or is it essential for leaders today?
Well, it's something that to be ignored is really kind of to not be a leader. And the reason is that if you're supposedly a leader in something, you have to be found, right? People need to be able to find you. And that's what personal branding is that they're finding the right information at the right times in the right places. And without that, then you lose that leadership ability because you're being drowned out by other people who are really good at marketing, specifically digital marketing. And so, the search engines, and by search engine, I mean, and LinkedIn is a search engine and Google's a search engine, right? Like all of these places, they're getting more sophisticated. And so by doing the right thing, doing the actual work and taking small steps to ensure that it's getting to these places, you can actually, outrank, we'll say, people that are focused on the ranking and not the actual doing. And so to just ignore it, you're allowing for a flood of the wrong type of expert to reach the top, and it's actually destroying the way people are viewing different fields of things like science and research, and academics are really having a hard time. So
Yeah.
and it's just the evolution, of your resume at its core, and you wouldn't not update your resume and send it out to the world. So I just see personal branding as being no different.
What are the can you talk about your journey a little bit? Because I think that was interesting where I think you talked about how you were like a social media manager or something, and then you went from that really in 3 years to building your firm and building thought leadership and quite a platform, so to speak. We'll use that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I actually started my career on the platform side of social media. So I worked for a live streaming company that had about 10 million registered users before live stream was really a thing. People didn't know what to do with it. So it was savvy teenagers from Reddit, basically, and that style. And I just saw the how it worked on that end. And then I got into social media marketing at an agency, and I built out this department. But the clients were, healthcare companies and insurance, and they weren't Taco Bell. They weren't fun, you know what I mean? And so I was looking at it from this different sort of lens of like what is its core doing? What's its function? And to be honest, social media is not any different than like search engine optimization, to be honest, in my opinion, at its core. And search engine optimization is no different than networking in person at its core. And so, we started to apply those things. Our company was acquired, and when through that acquisition, I ended up working inside of a large healthcare company, and I managed a lot of people at this point. And I was like, I bet there's other stories to be told. So we did this like company wide it was actually more like the sales teams, a survey or a questionnaire, like what else are you involved in? And we realized that they were involved in so many things related to the business outside of it. And we started doing personal branding for the employees, and it really worked, right? So my co-founder and I were like, there's something to this. We already know digital marketing. This is the next thing that we can't make the changes we see or test, because we love case studies. Like we like pulling this stuff off and being like, look at what we did. And so we left the company to start our own agency so that we could find businesses to work with that would test our theory. Okay. And then we built this business. And then it's great. We have 2 offices now. We're in Las Vegas and Santa Monica. We've got clients all over the world, and it's been a really exciting experience.
Well, that's fascinating. I want to shout out to good morning back to you, Kristen, in San Francisco, and our Tim. I'm not sure where you're saying hello from, but good morning to you. Krista says, I think I met you, Cynthia, at the Impact Summit in Utah last fall.
Yes, I think so. That's amazing. Hello. Thanks for watching. That's great. We'll have to connect. You have my email.
I know Kristen will have a question too, I bet.
That's great.
I'm guessing. Hope she does. So let me ask you this. How did you build, sort of at the individual level, your individual kind of thought leadership and platform? Because you've got over 1 million followers on Twitter. you've got huge numbers, and not just huge numbers, but they're engaged, right?
Yeah.
So how did you do that? Is there a simple way, or is it just good old fashioned hard work and just being really methodical and on top of it all the time?
Well, I think what it is, to be honest, is one, I look at these social platforms as tools. I don't look at them as laws. And I think that that's something people tend to misunderstand, is that we put these weird rules around how to use social media tools because that's how everyone's using them. And to be honest, if everyone's using them a certain way, using them differently is probably most effective for what you're trying to do. Second thing is looking at what are your goals. My goals have always been strategic networking and access to information. So that's what I used for specifically Twitter for. And so I would create these Twitter chats where once a week I would ask questions and then other people would answer them. And then I became the expert. Like, it created this community of people who, and it started out as, we're doing this, we're working in social media for companies that weren't cool. And there are a lot more companies out there that are not cool than are. And so there's just kind of this access, this group of people that didn't have any information about what they were doing. And it grew from there because there was a need to talk about these things, one. And two, we created a space like you're doing here to talk about it.
Okay.
And that's where it sort of started. But I think it is really important to go in with, what is your goal? Like, today I want to find I want to write for something, or I want to meet someone in this industry. Well, go find them and, semi-stalk them online. They will start reaching out to you, because when you stalk someone online, it's weird and they can tell.
Right.
So, yeah.
I know that's what I do on LinkedIn. I still do it every day. I mean, I reach out to at least 10 people that I want to meet, in an industry or a topic, on a topic just like this or whatever it is. And I try to reach out to 10 new people a day to grow that network, right?
Totally. And the thing is, developers are funny. Engineers, they're funny people. And having worked on the platform side, I know that if something exists that seems like a loophole in one of these social media platforms, right? It was either because it was a joke, someone thought it would be funny, or it was just oversight. Either way, it was great. So,
Right.
so I think there's opportunity in figuring that stuff out.
Okay. What is how do you manage it all? Because how do you have time to kind of build that network and to do the live chats and to do all that? And you're also growing an agency, right? And so you're strategically working to build Bell and Ivy I guess it all goes hand in hand, doesn't it?
It does. And I think that
I mean, people don't hire Bell and Ivy. Do they hire you?
I mean, they hire Bell and Ivy, and there's a consulting element to our business that allows us to work with I think some companies. So it depends on the client and the project. But I'm very much in the day-to-day at Bell and Ivy, and but I can't run around and write a book about a topic, create a company around a topic, and then not do the thing I'm talking about.
Yeah. But I mean, I guess what I meant by that are they hiring you because of what you've built for yourself, and they see that?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, no, I think it depends on the type. So we've got some pretty great case studies from our company. We've been doing this, quite some time. So it is definitely both. I don't think, I think that also my co-founder and I have been doing this for quite some time. So between the two of us, we get a lot of referrals, and we actually our strategic sort of way of working with people is we don't really lose clients. So as they grow, we grow. We have a very, very, very low turnover rate. People stick with us for literally ever. And so that is, and has consistently been who we are and what we do. And so Yeah, I think that they come to us mostly through referrals. There are some outreach situations where people are like, hey, I see what you're doing. And that, though, it really depends on what their goals are. Because we don't do, for instance, personal branding for people that don't have businesses that can benefit from their brand. It's not the type of personal branding we do. And then on the digital marketing side, yeah, we do get a little bit of referrals and stuff from online doing stuff like this.
Okay. What I guess my question then would be, if I'm does personal branding work? I know if you're a big CEO, if you're a Fortune 100, 500, whatever, CEO leader or whatever, that makes sense to me. Does personal branding for like a small, medium enterprise, small business, does that work too?
Yeah, of course. And actually, I speak a lot in emerging markets to small, medium enterprises. So that's like the focus. And the reason is, with you're looking at globalization, and there's these companies have access to grow in ways that all over the world that you didn't really have before. And a big part of that is awareness. And
Okay.
awareness really does fall on, like, who is the team, who are the people, what are you doing, and who's better to tell that story than the executives or the founders, or sometimes even the investors. But I will say this: if you're really good at executive, but you're not great in front of people, okay, and this is a rare thing, but it does happen.
Sure.
Work on it before you videotape yourself. Okay,
Yeah.
like start with a format that's a little bit more approachable. Get help and listen to people, because once it's out there, your business, just as much as it can benefit from these things, can also, be damaging. And you see this a lot with people being removed from positions because they said too much or not enough or whatever on issues that they were asked about. So, look at it, especially if you get to the medium-sized enterprise level, right? Look at it very strategically, and think about who else in your organization could represent different parts, right? So, you can always pull and lean on those people too, I think. But it does absolutely work. It's free marketing. People fall in love with people long before they fall in love with brands.
You said something earlier about being strategic about your social interactions. What did you mean by that?
So everybody has a different idea of what personal branding is, and there's been, and they're not wrong. So yes, you should, if you're really going to go for it, like all the way in, documenting your day and all of these things are very much, videotaping, getting on your phone, live stream, all of that is something that will work. If you're not the person that's great at doing those things, there are other ways to do it without overextending yourself in an area that you're not comfortable with and you're not good at. Because if it's not good, it's not going to help you, right? So it's got to be something that feels natural and not forced, and you can work up to those places. So writing something versus videotape might be a solution, or having someone help you with editing something, or downloading Grammarly, for instance. Those things are very beneficial versus feeling like you have to do a certain type of engagement or interaction that isn't going to help anybody and make you look kind of bad.
You find that voice, right? Because I think what you were just saying is, you also have to have something to say, right?
Yeah.
And it has to be relevant, and it has to be. How do you figure that out? That's a horrible question to ask, but
No.
if you're running a small, medium enterprise, or even a big company, like, how do you know what people want to hear?
Yeah, so I always tell people, go through your day, go through your week, and every time someone asks you a question, write it down. And if you get the same question more than once, answer that question in an article.
Okay.
Because the questions that people have for you end up being the same, right? And they change, but it's there. And just answer that question and you're appealing to your audience because they're already asking you. So
Yeah.
that's a great place to start.
So
Trying to,
even customers, for example.
yeah,
Customers
absolutely.
what? Okay.
Yep. And it's because trying to think of something, if you're not a journalist and this is not some like investigative research piece, which, you know, most of it is not, right?
Right.
If it's going to have appeal and you want to prove that it does, like, or you want to be the expert, then you have to answer the questions that they think the expert knows.
Do you think that, what if your story is just not that interesting? I mean, because everybody says, yeah, you have to have a story, right? You got to create content around that story.
Mm-hmm.
What?
Yeah, no, everybody's story is interesting, right? It's the way you look at it. So your day to day is always more interesting than you think it is because you're living it. It's like if you watch the same movie over and over again, it's not that interesting anymore. But if you watch it for the first time, it's always at least entertaining. Even if it's bad, it's entertaining. And so I think that's the thing to remember is ask other people, especially like family members that love you dearly, but maybe aren't in your day to day, because they'll figure out how to tell your story the most exciting way. The other thing is that most people have no idea how other people introduce them in a room. And it's usually much better than they would have introduced themselves. And so that is, you know, asking around, like, how do you introduce me to people? When you bring me up, like, what do you say? And you'd be shocked. You do have an interesting story. It's just you're looking at through the lens of the, like, you know, you're just doing it.
Right?
Yeah. You're bored. Yeah. You've actually bored yourself.
All right, let's go here because we've got a bunch of engagement here. We've got a bunch of, I think we've got a bunch of questions. My daughter's name is Ivy. Thank you, Krista. Let's see, Alexis Ray. What do you say to the person who is reticent to boast about their personal brand? It feels arrogant. Let me see. She says, it feels arrogant if I do it. Alexis Ray, question.
Yeah, so I always say to people that don't become here. Don't be so humble that you become pridefully humble, because the thing is, we're being flooded with people saying they're doing something and they're not. And if you're actually doing it, please step up and tell us what's happening. And you think your job is not important or interesting, but whether it's marketing, I don't care if you're inside, if you're working on the ground floor and you're a store manager somewhere, or you're checking people out, like, you are the front man. Like, we want to know the real stuff. Like, don't do it for yourself, do it for everybody else. How about that? Because to be honest, we all can see the flood of just kind of fake weird news out there, and not even just, I'm not talking like politics, I'm talking like how to do something written by someone who's never done it. It's like that. It's just terrible education. So yes, that's what I would say. And the second thing is, it feels pretty, boastful when you write a resume too, as we mentioned, but you still do it and you still hand it to someone. It's, it's no different. And just, obviously you can do it in a way that makes you feel comfortable. And sometimes that's curating content versus writing it. So you become the expert go-to person by saying these people are, reliable. And I'm saying that by sharing it. And that's another way to do it. You could still build an audience that way.
Yeah, there's a fine line between arrogance and sort of self-promotion, isn't there? I mean,
yeah. And just asking the question means you're not. I can already tell you're not going to be arrogant. So please get out there.
The fact that you're conscious about that means that
yes.
You're good. You're good. Let's see, Cynthia. This is a question. Let's see. From Krista. Let's see. She says, I guess my strategic question is, A, do you spend 6 months first building a following and then do strategic networking? Or B, can you reach out to influencers as a nobody and use that to reach the following? And if B, how do you get noticed or a reply?
Okay, so there's a story that I always tell is I was at like here, first of all, the idea of an influencer is, what are you influencing, right? So is it what about this person makes them an influencer for you? Are you trying to access their network? Are they a government leader? Are they an executive? Are they just have a ton of followers? Are they like a teenager talking about whatever they talk about on social media? There's different reasons. So first and foremost, if you want to connect with someone, I would say find them on the platform they have the least engagement, because they will respond there. The second thing is, don't focus on building a following, focus on building a community around a discussion and a topic. Because if you focus on the following part, then you're going to end up with a not engaged audience, we'll say that, right? So they're just, who knows how they found you? They're going to unfollow you at some point, and it's boring. So consistency in whatever the discussion is. So, you do this, 3-4 times a week, right? I used to post my Twitter chats once a week for half an hour. That's it. But that consistency in that community is what really builds the following. So they go hand in hand. And then when you're trying to reach out to someone, just know why you want to connect with them. And then again, I found the former Prime Minister of New Zealand. I wanted to interview her at this event, and they told me no. And I was like, okay, that's rude. And so I found her on Twitter, and it had her Snapchat in her bio. And I was like, oh, she's promoting Snapchat. So I sent her a Snap video, and she responded. She's like, oh, I just left, but I'll put you in touch with my people. And I was like, I just get in touch with the former Prime Minister of New Zealand over Snapchat. Like, this is so stupid. Yes, I think that it's, really just important to know what that person's goal is and help them achieve it. Her goal that day was Snapchat. So, yeah.
I'd also say, just don't be afraid to reach out, even when, people, if you like and you follow their work and you comment on their post, they're going to reply at some point. They're going to notice you.
Yeah. And the most important people in the world don't have followers on social media, but they're there. So that's another thing, is look at these, look up people that their title sounds so insanely important, because it probably is. That's why it's there. And then you'll see they have 300 followers on Twitter, and they will respond to you there. But if you email them, you'll never hear back. Right. So yeah, don't be afraid. They want to have that engagement.
How do you, as a leader, how do you sort of understand what platform works for you best? I know for me, because I'm a business coach and consultant, that LinkedIn has been great. YouTube, don't bother. Facebook, don't spend a lot of time on. Twitter, okay. But, how do you know?
Yeah. So, the first thing is, you know your audience, and then your goal. So if one of those has to come first, and then it should be the goal, right? So for me, if my goal was quick interactions, easy access to people and information, that's why I started on Twitter. It was just fast. It fit my personality, and I would go there to meet people and take those conversations offline. And then, but if you're a business coach, obviously your goal would be to engage in high-level business discussions with leaders, and the discussions that are happening on Twitter are way more on the tactical side than the big picture leadership, right? So it makes sense that you would be on LinkedIn. I hesitate when people say, I just don't know how to be on these platforms, and it's like, well, start somewhere where you're comfortable, because there's an audience everywhere, right? Twitter is going away. I guess kind of, no, like it's still there's still very, very has a ton of people there. So start where you're comfortable, and then move it once you've got an idea of what the content will be, what the community's like. Because if you're trying to build something on, say, Instagram, and you hate taking pictures, well, now you've got a big problem on your hands. So it's that definitely don't forget about yourself in the process. So if you're not someone who wants to film, people have been trying to get me to create a YouTube channel forever. It's just not where I'm at right now. I don't have time to do that. It sounds like a lot. It's not my my
Right.
space. And if you're not considering how yourself in the mix and how you're going to feel about it, and if you can be consistent, then you're really not preparing yourself for the problems ahead, because you're not going to do it. You're going to put a promise out there that you can't live up to.
Right.
Yeah.
Talk to us about platform. I mean, we're 30 minutes in and I haven't even gotten to the point. So, I apologize.
That's fine.
Talk about platform and how why you wrote it, what you think, what problems do you address in it, and how can it help people?
Yeah. So the coming from the platform side of social media, there was one thing I saw, was that there was a huge disconnect between like the idea of television and then real interaction online. So that was one. And then we call them what is it, like keyboard heroes, right? It's like it's like your superpower comes out of the keyboard. And then, yeah. So then there's that. And then the second thing is that when I worked, working with in companies, I started to notice that the people doing the work weren't always getting credit for it, and that some people were capable of so much more than they were hired for. But you're hired, and then that's it. Like, you don't get an opportunity to, like, hey, here's my resume. I did all these classes, or I learned this, or here's where I could help in this new direction for the business. So you don't really get to do that again. And so I was looking at it like, where's the book for people who just want to have, career advancement without having to shift jobs and make these lateral moves? Where's the book for the people that, are going to events and seeing the same people on panels talk about the thing they do incorrectly over and over again, right?
Right.
Who just don't know how to approach this, because at their core, the first and foremost is their job, and that's kind of why we need to hear from them. And so I wanted to address two things: is that audience that was kind of being overlooked, because there is a place for the big and bold personal branding, but the majority of people just need it to be better in life, in their career, and showcase what they've done. And so I wrote it for them, and then I wrote a lot of the strategic digital end, because most of the time people don't realize that, where you're putting out these reviews, or if your Alexa's on, and like, these things become public, and so half the time the thing that's an obstacle in your way, you don't even know it exists, right? And so that was who it was for. It's just normal people who are trying to figure out why they're being overlooked for things, and how they can build a foundation and walk away if they want to. But if they don't walk away, here's some ways you can build upon it. Because again, it was getting a lot of outreach from people in transition, and they're like, I don't know why I'm being overlooked. And then you would look them up and you're like, I do. So it's just that was who it was for. Yeah.
Okay. And let's check social media again. Let's check see we've got let's see, if you don't step up and share your gifts to the world, these people won't be able to solve. That's a long question.
Thanks.
Let's see. Wow. Speak does not communicate your story well. You made that point. A bunch of statements and a really, really, really long question. So we'll go back to mine.
Okay. Okay, great.
Sorry, guys. But thank you for all the engagement. I mean, this is really great. This is a really great conversation, and we'll jump in. I'm sure Cynthia and I can jump in after we get off the air and answer questions and participate in discussion. Talk about, are there some guides or things in the book that really help you sort of plan out how you're going to do this?
Yeah, so we talk about what I call the 4 pillars of personal branding, and that is your personal proof. And personal proof are things that you need to get through to feel confident in doing the next thing. They're not necessary for the world, but for you they are, right? And so that could be maybe you want to be a graphic designer, but you need to go to college first and get a 4-year degree. Not necessary, but you feel better. But that's personal proof. Social proof is all of the things that people need to know about you in order to trust that you've done the job. So that would be if you are a doctor, we absolutely want you to go to college and prove that you've done it, and you want a surgeon that's done 300 surgeries, not 3. So social proof is that, the doing. And then there is association. So everything you're associated to and everyone. So, the companies you work for and the colleges that you went to, or the people you spend your time with, things like this, even they count in the internet world, right? Because now we're connected forever in this piece of content. And then the fourth is recognition. What have other people given you? People love awards. We'll see someone like, oh man, look at this person. They got the #1 live stream on LinkedIn award from this company I've never heard of. And it's still the most exciting thing about you, right? Like so it's like, don't forget to put that out there. And
that's why we put these up here, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, so there's that. And then you want to look at those things and hand it to someone and say, hey, highlight the 2 things on here that are most impressive. You'll be surprised, because the thing that you worked the hardest for is what you would consider the most impressive. It's not usually the most impressive thing to other people. And so when you're looking at how do I structure my bio and what information do I put first, and how do I organize it? Well, get the feedback from people, fill out those 4 pillars and just hand it over and say, hey, highlight the 2 things that you think are impressive. Because you see how this world works. Like, people will look at a bio, skim it quickly, and they'll take away from it a couple things. Any brand they can recognize. That, so, Forbes, got it. Okay, great. And, whatever relevant is the thing that you do, right? So the do thing, so that they can go back and say, this person does this, and I know they can do it well because Forbes said so. And that's how people take and digest information. It's, here's what this person is, and I know it to be true because they're validated here. And so, that's the 4 pillars for messaging. And then, of course, there's a bunch of tools on how to search yourself and remove things, so that you start with a clean slate. It's the most boring and most beneficial part of the entire process.
Right.
Yeah.
So you can remove things.
Yeah. So I see there's 2 problems when you're looking at the world of search engines, right? Is one, you either have a very, very unique name, or like me, you have a very, very common name. And so you're fighting one of 2 battles. You're either trying to organize the information about you in a way that tells a better story, or you're trying to get on to page 1 for anything with your name. So and that's, and there's different ways to do that. So either push it down or you get rid of it. And remember, these platforms, that own this information, unless it's something like a mugshot, which don't pay those people, is you can contact them, right? If they're still up, someone's still operating it somewhere. So there's that. You can download a cease and desist letter online and just shoot it over. Most likely that will be enough to get them to take whatever it is you're looking for down. Like, simple. Just those little action items. The other thing is, if, let's say, there is something like a mugshot, or maybe just a terrible picture from college that won't leave your picture images, go to something like Knowem, KNOWEM.com. Register for all of the social media platforms at once with your name, and make sure the image that you use, the file name, is your name. And then I would even put the year, right? So that way it's.
Can you say that again?
Yeah, Knowem. It's KNOWEM.com. And you don't ever have to be active on these platforms, but if you own them, now you have at least more imagery or more images in a place that Google can pull from.
That's awesome. I had no idea you could do that.
Yeah.
Um,
So usually if you, anything you're trying to do, I just Google that and then someone's created a solution. So,
what advice that actually was I'm glad you brought that up because, you know, we're in a generation now. Thank God I didn't have like Snapchat or Instagram when I was in college and have all those photos out there.
I know, yeah.
All the evidence, right, of misdeeds. But what advice do you have for young people today that really live on these platforms and everything is photographed, everything is filmed, everything is be careful? Is that
Yeah. No, so one of my sort of passion projects, I would call it, is that after working at that live stream company and seeing the disconnect, right? Because it's mostly teenagers. One, the first set of advice goes to parents. Is
okay?
we hand the keys to the car over to people who have never taken driver's ed. We're giving, here you go, here's the internet. You're like,
Right.
wait, whoa, that's not good. And so there should be some formal type of education around how to protect yourself. And this is, this issue is costing people. Colleges spend a ton of money protecting the athletes from themselves online because they've spent all this money getting them there, and then in one tweet or one Instagram story, the whole thing comes crashing down. And so that's first and foremost, is really explaining. And a great way to explain would be to take your old college photos and say, what if this ended up online? Do you think I still have a job? Like use an example. But that's first. And then I think, you can't stop anybody from using these things. And the kids are like way more intuitive. The most important thing is if someone is, you can contact these platforms. If someone is, doing something or being a bully or threatening, or they're saying, I'm going to do this, believe them. Click the little report button in all of the social media platforms. Save your friends from themselves, because that's the stuff that the people say online. It's true. Let's just assume at this point. And then the second thing, it's yes, thinking before you post is great. And I would suggest that. So I went home. I have a ton of family. And a little fun thing I like to do is, just a couple of years ago, I created an Instagram for my grandfather, and it was actually just me. And you would watch the Instagram profiles were just going private like so quickly. It was like all the way down. I was like, this is amazing. I just closed off everyone in my family's Instagram account in one little joke. So yeah, I think, if your parents are watching, there's that going on too. But yeah, I mean, you can't stop it. You just have to hope that there's enough being said about it and enough education about it for these people, because the future president is on Instagram and Twitter or probably just Instagram at this point.
Probably Snapchat
and there's nothing that we can do about it. And the wonderful thing about teenagers is that their brains are different because they're still growing, and that's the exciting part. And the bad thing about teenagers is that they don't know it. So yeah, so I think it's really up to everyone around them to get that message out.
Is it something that I know as an employer and stuff, it's something that's more in our consciousness now. I mean, we're looking at social media profiles and to see what people are doing, saying, to make sure that they're a fit, right? And
right.
It's just sort of this added element that I know when I was hired for my first several jobs, nobody looked at I don't think I had them, right? They didn't look at social media accounts to see what kind of person I was, right? So you just have to be conscious of it, I know.
Yeah, you do, and you have to check your security settings, because people think that some of the stuff they're putting out there is private, and it's not. And one of the biggest issues with this is physicians and doctors that leave school. And there was a case where a doctor, was posting on Facebook trying to get feedback from other doctors about something, right? And it was an X-ray, but he didn't realize that the patient's name was in the corner of the X-ray. Now you spent $200,000, $300,000 to go to college, and in an instant, it's over. So it's you got to just really think of it. You have to think of online and social media as nothing more than what they are, just communication tools. You're communicating, you're broadcasting, and yeah, so it's just, you have to be careful with that stuff.
I just tell my kids, look, assume that if you take a picture of it, right, or you email it, or you Snapchat it, or whatever it is, that's public, right?
Yeah, there's an entire Snap. What is it? It's like Snap Ghosts or something, where they've just cataloged every snap that was ever public.
Right. Like,
it's there. It's not going anywhere. So yeah. And then also, the thing you pay attention to gets bigger. So if something does end up out there, just laugh it off. Do not get upset. Don't freak out. The moment you do, it's called the Streisand effect. Have you heard of this Streisand effect? So Barbara Streisand really wanted to keep her house off of the internet, and so the internet really wanted to put her house on it. And it became this whole thing of, had she said nothing, no one would have ever looked for her house. But because she was so adamant about keeping her house off the internet, that Reddit had just been flooded with pictures of her house. So it's called the Streisand effect. If you don't want it to happen, then we want to know why. So just let it roll off your shoulder. It'll go away. Yeah.
Yeah. I like that. Well, thank you so much for being on the program today. What question I always ask guests is, what's the best piece of advice you ever got?
Oh gosh, one of the best pieces of advice I ever got is here's a good one. One of my old mentors, he always said, "There's always room at the top." And you don't know it till you get there. But there's always room at the top. And so don't ever feel like you're competing, I think, with other people, is the message. There's always space. And whatever hurdles we go through, we all go through them. Like, just keep going.
Mm-hmm. That's good. I like that. That's a good way to wrap it up. Thank you so much for Cynthia for joining us. This has been the Power Lunch, a special edition on Friday morning for Cynthia in California. But thanks for joining us today, spending your time with us. It's been a real pleasure. If you want to check out our website, it's powerlunch.live to see who we have coming up in the next few weeks. We've got a really great program lineup coming up. We've got Ben Angel, we've got Jay Bear, great people coming up. And if you'd like our program to broadcast live from your event, please do get in touch, reach out through direct message or messaging on LinkedIn or other social media, and get in touch. And we'd love to be at your event, your conference, or whatever it is. So anyway, thank you for spending your time with us, and we'll see you